The pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the record show that all board members are present, and our board showcase is a presentation by Early Childhood, and Stephanie is here.
Correct, yes.
So,
Where do you want me?
yeah,
Well, I think, how about somewhere in the podium or somewhere in the middle? I think that would be great. Unless, did you have like a presentation?
I do have a presentation. Emily, is she on still?
I would
Yeah.
imagine. Do
I'm
you
here.
have Stephanie's presentation?
Yep, I can share screen in just a minute.
Thank you, Emily. So I'm Stephanie Middendorf. I know some familiar faces. I have been an employee for the district for, this will be my 7th year. This is my 3rd year starting in this current position as the early childhood coordinator for community ed, but early childhood and all that. And we're going to showcase some of the highlights of early childhood. Dawn has been so lucky to sit on some community ed advisory councils, so she is aware of some of this great information, but it will be nice to share with everybody here tonight. Is there something wait for me to control it, or are you controlling it, Emily, or?
Mommy.
I'll do it. Yeah, just tell me next slide when you're ready.
Okay, perfect. Next slide. So one of the big parts for our program and to get to know what our registration is going to be like is we have a census that I'm sure you talk about when you talk about your budgets, knowing what kindergarten enrollment is going to be. And one of the things we have to do in every community, in every district, we have to provide early childhood screenings and access to that to all children. Kiddos can be screened at the age, starting at age 3. That's the best age. There were some misconceptions that it was called just kindergarten screening instead of early childhood screening, that people were waiting until kindergarten to get screened. And the whole purpose of early childhood screening is to gain access for services for children that might need it, for health services, school services, speech services, just knowing that there's a place in the community for them. So anyway, this with COVID, and I started this position in 2020. It was obviously rough for families to come in for screenings because they were told to stay home. And then they didn't want to take their kiddos out of the home. They were scared. So our screening numbers were down. But since 2020, you can see our numbers have gone up. I shared the numbers. I believe in 2020, it was like 124. Emily can give you the exact numbers. But again, I think it's very inaccurate because 2020 was not a year we can really judge numbers on. In the school year of 2020 to 2021, we screened 164 students. And then this past school year, we screened 236 children. And so we've improved lots of the ways we do screening here in Princeton School District to model other districts in neighboring communities. One of the ways is providing more outreach to families and educating them on why they should do early childhood screenings, again, to provide some of those services, getting them ready for kindergarten. So we've collaborated with lots of daycare centers in town here, Grow With Us, Little Red Wagon, and Bright Child. We did contact the Montessori here in town, and they said to contact them again this year. So we did live on-site screenings at the centers and provided not only screenings for their children at their site, but then also offered a marketing about Princeton Public Schools and making sure they get registered for kindergarten. Also providing them services if they needed anything, like if they needed to come for speech services or behavior services through Princeton Public Schools. Another thing is we offered more days and times for families. We tried Fridays last year. We also extended it and a few hours in the evening for working families. And then of course, marketing. We have to provide marketing to families to let them know that they need to come for an early childhood screening. So we embedded it in everything. You can go to the next slide, Emily, please. So before 2020, before I started, if you have a kiddo or a relative in the community, they weren't able to sign up for an early childhood screening online at all. They had to call a number, and then a lot of times the community ed office was busy and they'd have to leave a message and then they'd have to get a call back to get a time. So And of course, in this day and age, that is a barrier for families because they didn't want to wait to find an appointment. So now they changed, before I started, they changed to use Sign Up Genius. I'm sure you've heard of that. Sign Up Genius is great. We've used it up until this summer. The big drawback with Sign Up Genius is there's lots of ads, even when we pay for the premium version. Families still would have to exit out of there. But again, 2021, there's still lots of illness. As you know, as the school board that year, you still had lots of ups and downs with even our kids coming to school. So again, screening, it was difficult. They'd call because they had a symptom. Who knows if it was COVID, but it was a cold symptom, so they stayed home. But this, and we screened it last school year in 2021. We screened all upcoming kindergarten students. In the past, that wasn't being done with diligence. And that impacts a lot. We get funding for all kiddos we screen. The best age again is 3. We lose fund. We don't get funding if a child already is in kindergarten, but it helps the whole process for kindergarten in the school when they get screened. So last year we screened and made attempts to screen all kids, whether it was during the day at the school district. And so we had a whole team go to kindergarten and we had them do it during the school day. So that's awesome. Next slide, please, Emily. And then the great thing is in 2022, once COVID parameters started getting a little lessened, we were able to go into those daycares and screen them right on site. Another thing is when you only have screening times in the day, people have to take off work. So doing it right at that daycare center took that barrier right away. And then kindergarten safari, I'm sure you heard about it. We finally got to do it this year. That was awesome. So that's, getting kids revved up and about our district and meeting all the great kindergarten teachers. We were able to screen, I believe it was 42 kids at the early childhood fair. We had 2 different teams right on site. So we got that done right there. And so I don't know if Brian last board meeting talked about how we made that switch to Elio. I'm sure it was on topics on meetings and business and money and the budget. But Elio has been a huge thing in community ed because that's our new registration system. Tiger Club moved there in January. Preschool did their online registration there in March. And now moving forward, we are going to have people sign up through Elio. They don't have to pay any money. But one benefit is that there's no ads, right? They don't have to sign up for a Sign Up Genius account. They're not getting any ads. The only thing they're getting is they're going to have an account through Princeton Public Schools, which helps them. They can register for community ed then. A lot of them probably already have one. And if they don't, they're registering for one. It's free. They don't have to pay anything because it's a 0 cost. And a lot of different districts use Elio for that purpose. Let's see. And then moving forward, we're going to keep doing outreach to help ways to get more people to come get screened. My next step is to go to home daycares to see to model that kind of like how we did those, the sites, the centers. I wanted to start big, but now we can start reaching out to home daycares and build that relationship with Princeton Public Schools to help them get their kids screened. Does anyone have any questions about screening or? No?
No.
Oh, you can keep going, Emily. Thank you so much. So preschool registration, I kind of touched on that. Preschool has been the highlight of, along with screening, along with my job. So we used to use, oh boy, we went through a couple different programs since I've been in this position. They used to use that community ed registration system. But when I first got there, they made that change to school age childcare. But this year in March, we made the switch to Elio and it was amazing. It went through a bunch of different questionnaires because we do not currently have transportation. For example, if a child is just coming to morning preschool, we do not have transportation. We have transportation to get them here, but we don't have transportation to take them home at 10:30. And when I'm talking about this preschool stuff, most of it, I'm talking about general ed preschool, not our special ed preschool, because we do offer obviously transportation for those students. But why I brought that thing about transportation up, it could be looked at as a negative, but in the registration system, it goes over all of that. So a participant, a parent registering their child would have to understand that they would be providing that transportation they're using our bus service that one way, or they're going to sign up for Tiger Club. So it's not leaving anything up to finding out in August, which that first year when I started, and again in COVID, a lot of families would find that out in August, I guess, and then people are going, I can't pick up my kiddo, and people depend on us for childcare. We are a preschool, we're offering those great kindergarten, early readiness skills, but people are depending on us for their care while they go to work. A lot of families are. So much great feedback with the registration process, and I'm going to go through some numbers and where we're sitting with this upcoming school year. Emily, you can go to the next slide. Oh, and I'm so sorry. This was just the enrollment timeline. It modeled what Emily made for kindergarten, because a lot of families, if it's their oldest, it's their first time going through this great process. So it models kind of like how Emily set up for those new kindergarten families. We're back to school in August, Monday, isn't it, Emily? All that stuff's going out on August 8th. I already communicated with all our preschool families because it looks a little different. K through 12 bus registration, they do it right through Skyward. It looks different for preschool, again, to that fact that we do not offer it in that midday time. So I already communicated all that great stuff, but we're going to model most of that timeline along with K-12. So that's awesome. So they're all aware of that. Next slide, Emily. So a lot of this, again, is all based on gen ed numbers. So when I'm talking about this, it's not including any special ed. Most of our classrooms are inclusive, so that means that we are including kiddos in special ed. But when we talk about open spots, we're talking about kiddos that are not receiving special ed services. So they are either paying or they're on a scholarship. So those are some of the numbers. Could you go back, Emily? I apologize. All of our classes right now are full. We have a wait list. But I already know, again, in a COVID year, it was a lot of back and forth, but I already have a couple people that now, have changed jobs or they moved, and we have a couple spots and I'm waiting to hear back. Because what happens is that all day, everyday class is a hot class, right? And so then you have people on the waiting list, but they're registered for another class. So they'll jump to that class and then we'll have an opening for that class. And so it's all over the place kind of toward the end of August, but we are sitting so great. All of our mixed ages classes, and if Emily, now you can go to that, the kindergarten readiness classes, they are full except for our afternoon 4-day. We do have 2 spots. So that's super exciting. And again, like I haven't seen it in a typical year because I started in 2020 and it's been, everyone knows COVID has changed everything, but I think that's so awesome. We were able to add on from last year to make the afternoon class an inclusive class. So we did add numbers, so that's awesome. If you jump to the next slide, Emily, our new 3-year-old class, that was something we added new last year. We used to offer it a couple years ago, but it's for kiddos that are turning 3, but not by September 1st. They can turn 3 up until the end of December, and it's a great starter class. And that's been really popular, and that filled up right away. The next classes, if you go to the next one, they're parent component classes. We have a collaboration with Head Start. So a parent collaboration class is a class that family members get to come with the kiddo to class. And so we have 2 different types of classes. We have a Tuesday, Thursday class. And so it's in the morning, and a parent doesn't have to come on Tuesdays, but on Thursdays, they come along with their child. And then we have an evening class. And if you see these numbers, it looks like a ton of spots. But in reality, if we ECFE, the fall catalog is coming out on August 15th. And this kind of goes along with ECFE because it's parent involved classes. So we get some registrations in March, but a lot happens in August because, parents they think of it as an ECFE class. But I wanted to include those numbers because technically it is a preschool class and we have that collaboration with Head Start. So half the spots are Head Start spots in that Tuesday, Thursday class, and half are our spots. Does anyone have any questions about preschool? Because I threw a ton out at you.
How many staff members do you have teaching preschool classes?
Yeah, so again, Eric, that's a great question. So we have special ed teachers and we have general ed teachers. So general ed teachers are school readiness teachers. So we have, let's see, you're giving me a question here. So we have 1, 2, 3, I believe we have 4 like school readiness teachers, and then we have like 6, because they're all in different capacities on how they're doing special ed. I mean, our building has about 15 to 16 licensed, licensed teachers. It's just the way they're labeled looks a kind of different.
Right.
We do have 7 different classrooms. Again, all labeled by fruit, so I could list them out for you. But the unique thing is, like, parents have, I think preschool's so awesome. Not only it's their first time to be a Princeton Tiger, but they have so many options depending on what their family needs. Again, preschool does come with a cost unless they qualify for a scholarship. And so the more ways we can accommodate families, because they are paying, Michelle, and we're making, I mean, school readiness, it's hard to make money, but people are paying for their spots, or I'm helping them get access to those scholarships.
When you say there's a waiting list, how big is the waiting?
Yeah, so the waiting list actually isn't that, I know Brian had that same question when he started. So the waiting list has about 22 on there, but I believe there's only like 4 different, wait, no. I think if I looked right now, I think it's like 7 different people that don't want a class that they're not already registered for. So they're already in a class, they would rather have this class. So they're on the waiting list. So the all day, everyday class is what people want, but it's not enough to open a new class. So then we just have a lot of, like, for example, let's pretend my kiddo, I'm in the 4-day morning class. I'd like that all day class. So I registered for every class to be on the waiting list because I'd rather have a different class.
So the waiting list kids are being served.
Yes, and the problem is some of these kids that are on the waiting list, they've signed up in the past, like,
Too
week.
late. Too late.
You know what I mean? Like some of the ones, or they just want all day. Even if we would open up like another small section, they wouldn't be able to get in there. So one thing that we're doing this year, which was, because what happens after September, after we go through that, people sign up, people leave, people moved out of the district, and we have maybe a couple open spots. We usually don't have a ton. People depend on us for childcare, and once Tiger Club is full, we don't offer transportation in that midday. So if they're depending on us for childcare and there's no childcare spots in Tiger Club, that was a barrier. But this year we are now, Brian saw that right away because I brought that up before and we weren't able to open up another section. We are opening up another section of Tiger Club pre-K. So hopefully that solves some of those scenarios for those kiddos that just want that all day class. Maybe now, since they're on that waiting list for that Tiger Club that should be open, and they can register for that 4-day afternoon class if they're age eligible. So we do have people on the waiting list, but a lot of it's, they want that other class. Any other questions about?
Well, let's just say hypothetically, we had, enough for 2 or 3 more classes. What's our space look like?
We are.
Would we have space to add more?
I mean, I don't know. We tried, so when the first year I started back in 2016, 2017, there were 2 all-day everyday classes, but then there were, I don't know, but the issue, I wasn't in the spot that I currently am in, but people weren't paying tuition or paying all their tuition. And so I think if we were doing the due diligence that we are now and using Ilio and help, making sure people are paying, we definitely could open, because the more times you come to preschool, the more expensive it is. And so that all day, everyday class is our most expensive class.
I'm talking like physical
But
classrooms.
yeah, but physical classrooms, they're like right now, we're using all the spaces, especially since we're opening up that Tiger Club 2 pre-K. But what I was saying, like before, we have more partial day preschools now than we did back then because they had 2 full day.
I guess I'm bringing this up just so we're aware that I think we're going to continue to grow and we have amazing staff, and I believe it's going to continue to grow and we'll have more desire, but we will have some challenges associated with space in this building to add more classrooms.
What is the cost to parents for a child?
Yeah, so it depends on the class. So in that all day, everyday class, specifically, it's $640 a month. And so we don't prorate it, for example, like September, they don't start until September putting me on the spot again, 6th, 7th, 8th is their first day of school. And you know, in December, when we have the 2 weeks off, if they're paying for another daycare to get those costs, it could, you know, they're not
So
getting.
that's breakfast and lunch too?
It was the past couple years because of the free cost.
Mhm.
They do now, we will be charging again. Comparable to other districts though, or even the Montessori in town, it's very comparable for in Princeton and other communities. It is more expensive to go to an all-day class. Some districts, we did qualify for some funding because of COVID monies. We do not qualify for it again to get more people into, you know, school. It's just more funding for school readiness. Hopefully we're eligible for more funding. We'll keep applying, Michelle. But that's the barrier for families. The option is to just, that's why I'm so thankful we do have partial day preschool, because we can get more people in at that lower cost. So for example, that 4-day preschool is $240 for 4 days in the afternoon from 12 to 2:45, Monday through Thursday. It is a big, you know, a big price difference if you don't need the care. But yeah, limited in space, Brian and I, so last May, we have a gym space. That was the old board, you know, think back, old board meeting over there. Now it's used as a gym. It was used as a cafeteria. What happens though when the playground, you know, it's raining or it's just not safe to go outside that day for whatever reason, due to maybe allergies or just too hot, you know, it's never too hot here in preschool, but maybe too cold. We would use the gym, but then if they're using that space for lunches, we moved the lunchroom and we're figuring out that with Tiger Club. So we have a gym that can be used all the time as a gym, but again, space. Well, we're always brainstorming ways to use our space effectively, but if we ever wanted to expand, and as Princeton keeps expanding, it will be a barrier for our classrooms. Because our space is we have district members that support ECS, you know, ECSE or just special ed through the district that use our building as well as offices, which could very well change because there's offices all over, but we are using our building to its capacity. Any other questions? All right, Emily, can you go to the next? I'm so sorry, I think it went back. So to the next one. Perfect. So August 15th, the fall catalog opens for all community ed. And then so here are some of the offerings for ECFE. We are so lucky to have 2 great childhood educators, Tiffany Glacier and Amy Korkmeyer. And they have been in the district quite a while, and so many families keep coming back and coming from out of district, just like our preschool classes for all our other staff. But that opens up on the 15th, and we're constantly brainstorming ways to help reach our littles. Do you want me to talk about anything else specifically, or I apologize if I didn't talk about anything in detail, or?
No, you did a great job. You did a really great job.
I was telling the ladies here before you got here, this is a lot more intimidating than World's Best Workforce on Zoom.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the board to hear from me, just how impressive Stephanie is in her role.
Oh, no.
You know, no, she's outstanding, and you know, she's only been in this role for what now, 3 years.
3rd year, so
Third
only
year.
2.
Yeah, and it was one of the better moves that we've made in terms of, you know, right person in the right position, and we've seen some real growth, and I think it's going to continue to grow in a lot of ways under her leadership
And the leadership we have in community ed, like the whole program. I think.
Absolutely, it's really coming together. So thank you for your service.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Stephanie, I don't think you need to stay.
Okay.
Okay, you can leave.
I just feel really rude, you
No,
guys.
you're not going to be rude.
Thank you again, you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You can go out this way.
Okay.
There are no citizens' comments, so we'll move on to board member committee reports, starting with Deb.
All I had was agenda. I had the finance meeting before this, and Eric will give that update on that one.
Yeah, at finance committee, we had talked with the developer and Eldon about our land purchase agreement. They kind of gave us an update on where they're sitting right now, and the purchase agreement that we had expired July 30th, I think we said. So they're just kind of looking for an extension on that, and we didn't really come to a conclusion. We just wanted to hear what they were trying to work through and what they're looking for from us. They're looking for a 1-year extension.
Are we gonna discuss that, or have you, as the finance committee, come up with somewhat of a decision?
We haven't really come up with any decision. right?
Yeah, tonight was our first time.
It's just kind of got
Discussing it.
thrown at us right now,
Yeah.
about
Yeah,
10 minutes before the meeting early. We just kind of wanted to.
Yeah, and I think it's good for you to just have a heads up, and I think this is something that we can put on our agenda in 2 weeks from now, and we can discuss further. You know, they shared with us, there's several barriers, that they've had to overcome and continue to. There's lots of hoops that they need to work through and lots of work they have to do with the city. The city's going through different transitions right now with some of their staffing and leadership, that has slowed things down a little bit. So we believe that they are 100%. I mean, they're in on this. They've already spent a substantial amount of money to get to the place that they are right now. And, they don't want to turn back, but they need more time, and that's what they're asking for. So, I think we can spend, like we said, more time. They just sent, I think it was last Friday, an addendum, which happened to be, I think the day had expired. And the fact that we were able to talk about it today on Tuesday at our finance committee, I think was good timing. You're aware of it. And, my recommendation is to work with them as much as we possibly can. I still think it's a really good thing for our community. It's a really good thing for our school district. And we are understanding that things have changed economically in the last 6 months. So it's just that balance of working with them, but I guess there's always a limit on how long we're willing to wait. So I guess that's what we need to talk about.
And that's all I have, just finance.
And I had agenda planning.
Finance.
I eat meatballs.
No meetings.
Thank you. No student council report, superintendent report.
It's been a great summer. For me, I've had opportunities to use lots of PTO and get away and recharge the batteries. So thank you for that, those benefits. Those days are, I think, over for a while. And yesterday was really the signal of the new school year, because it was the MDE kickoff back to school event that happens annually. And the governor spoke yesterday, and we had, you may have seen, they had some coverage in some of the news stations on that. And, all school leaders come together and, we talk about lots of, the changes in education and, equity and mental health. All of the same things that we've been talking about are continuing to be at the forefront of what the state is advocating that we really continue to work on. I did talk to you a little bit about the land already, so I won't speak anymore on that. I wanted to give an update to the board that enrollment wise, this next month we'll be doing lots of daily check-ins to see what our numbers are for the beginning of the school year. We received some good information this morning in that we are roughly about 110 or so students in K6 more than what we had budgeted for. Now, what's that?
K8.
K8, okay, K8. We're cautiously optimistic because we do know that there will be several withdrawals that we are unaware of. And generally, we get those later, once we get the request for records from a different school that that child may have enrolled in. But it's certainly better to be, you know, in a position where we're 110, 120 more than if we were sitting here saying, geez, we're 120 fewer. Kindergarten is always the biggest question mark. We budgeted at 200. I think only about a month ago, we were at, you know, wondering if we were even gonna get to that 200. It might have been 2 months ago, we were at that 180, 185, 190. As of today, we're at 217. So we're hopeful that that number, you know, might
That
even
number's
go up.
solid, because those parents are registering.
And that will continue to grow too.
And
Two more weeks.
if the trend is, it's weird, things like the last few years, we get a lot of enrollments just even a week or two before school starts. Now that gets to be really tricky because we will have many difficult decisions now to make, trying to stay within those class size parameters. Because we will have several grade levels now that will likely be like the one student over, you know, what the parameters are. And, you know, and then some maybe two. And, you know, which grade levels do you add a teacher, which don't you, you know, that's gonna be lots of really digging into that. The tricky thing is, you know, I think that there could be an argument to say, hey, we need to add a teacher in every grade, K through 6. But realistically, financially, there's no way that we could possibly sustain that or handle that, you know, given the economic times that we know that are ahead of us. So, you know, we just want to have that balance, and it's tricky too, because, you know, right now the grade levels might say that we're one over the parameters, but as I mentioned before, we do kind of need to wait to see how many students may have left to really have a good idea. And it's not ideal, but sometimes we need to have very late hires, and we've done that in the past, and, you know, there's a strong chance that we might have to do that again this year. So that's, we now have all of our principals back, you know, working, coming every day. You know, we try and get them to take the month of July off. So we'll be having regular communications with them now. And in addition to that, you have special ed staffing, and, you know, depending on the number of new students that come in who have IEPs, and then each of their IEPs comes with different levels of services, which sometimes require additional staffing depending on that number of hours that are in that IEP, and the level of need that they have. So there's that. You know, we're working with Palmer right now. We have a big meeting with them. They are in the middle of hiring a new transportation manager for their Princeton Palmer, and that's kind of a late hire. And right now things are about as busy as they come as it relates to planning for transportation. And we also have TransFinder implementation happening right now too. So we'll learn lots more tomorrow. We're meeting with some of their executive level people so that we can get some updates. And then next week, at the end of next week, Thursday or Friday, we have a soft deadline of sending all of our back to school communications out to families and our staff, which is, I think, good timing. It's still 3.5 weeks or so before the beginning of the school year. So they'll get that electronic communication, and then we'll go, and that will include the bus drop off and pickup times and the location. So that information will be available for families. So there's a lot that goes into that back to school communication. So with that, I'll end my remarks unless you have further questions.
Any other questions for Ben? All right, we'll move on to approving the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Motion made by Deb,
Second.
second by Eric Strandberg. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign. We'll discuss and act on the previous board meeting minutes from July 19th. I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So
Motion made by Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Don. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. I will entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented. Motion made by Chad,
Second.
second by Eric Strandberg. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will move on to the information section, and 10A is the abatement bond process. Michelle, I assume.
Yes, Michelle's gonna walk us through that.
I gotta get it so I can see it. All right. So late yesterday, Ellers, I talked to Ellers on the phone, Jody and Matt. And with an abatement bond, we have to hold a public hearing. So that's standard protocol. They said typically they don't have a lot of public that actually comes to these. I said that was good, and then Ben told me to be a little cautious because we'll end up with lots just by thinking they won't show up. But they will walk us through this whole process. There's things we gotta put in the newspaper. We would need to call for the public hearing actually at our next meeting already to meet these timelines. One of the reasons the timeline would fall for our levy. So our September 20th meeting is also when we approve our